while now, I've been fascinated with undead and specifically making undead a little bit more. Not that they're not enough as they are, but maybe supersizing them in a way, or just giving them a little bit of extra juice. And I don't just mean making something more powerful. I want to do something other than that. I don't want to just be flavor. Flavor's great. Flavor's amazing. Flavor's fine. But I want something that, yes, it speaks to something about their flavor, their how they are in the fiction, but maybe also has some interesting mechanical hooks, or if not that, then kind of openings for tensions and play. The original Undead, at least the lowest level ones, were I think specifically called out, and I'm talking about your skeletons and your zombies as being essentially guards for evil wizards. You have an evil wizard, they've set up something, they set up a lab, a tower, whatever. They need somebody to guard it. They don't pay good wages. They're not interested in having OSHA come and check it out. No unions, nothing like that. So, hey, you know what I can do? I can summon some undead. They don't eat, they don't sleep. They're essentially little terminators, and I can just leave them there. And even if I leave, if I die, become a lich, go over to another plane, they'll still be there guarding that spot. And I think that's fine. That's great. But since the original D&D and onwards, I think we've had a lot of interesting conversations, movements, and just inspiration in terms of outside the game to be brought in that often lend to some different types of undead. And of course, there have been different types of undead. Yeah, they're your ghouls, your ghasts, your mummies, all those sorts of things pulled in from popular culture. But that initial bit of, okay, well, they're essentially wizard creations. If you take that origin as is, then I think the ease at which they're sort of destroyed or turned, either by clerics or just by the sword, makes a lot of sense. They were essentially, brought up with some kind of spell. And look, the spell's powerful because essentially it brings this undead there. And until it is destroyed or turned or whatever, it's there. Whoa, there it is. Bam. Good. But there's a lot of fiction and culture that talks about undead that are different than that. And that's not really reflected in your zombies, your skeletons as they are. And I know people have made other ones and they've done some things. I think there's room for both. And what maybe crystallized this for me, and I say both, I meant maybe multiple. What crystallized this for me is I'm driving home. I was up at Studio B. I didn't have a chance to record anything, but I had to drive up to the country and then drive back in kind of short order, and probably wasn't a great idea. But I was listening to the Unsolved Mysteries podcast on the drive, and it's kind of depressing and sad, and it's Unsolved Mysteries, and most of them are murders, but every once in a while they'll throw in a some kind of paranormal story. And this one was about a guy who bought a house, and it had some kind of evil spirit demon, something was in there, and the guy spent more than a decade fighting this demon till finally, at least if you believe his story, through exorcisms and doing all this stuff, he was able to vanquish this force of evil. That kind of story is kind of impossible the way D&D is written. Either you're able to, either it's a skeleton or a zombie, in which case, yeah, you can fight it, and it'll be a tough combat if you're a normal person, if you're not an adventurer. I don't know if this guy who owned the house, what level he is, but we could say he's level 1, level 2. But it took him a decade, so maybe he is a normal person. But in any case, this creature was more of an apparition, more of a specter, spirit, somewhere in there, ghost, maybe a poltergeist, maybe some of anything. So it didn't have a true corporeal body, though apparently he saw things creeping around, but mostly it's on the spiritual realm. And when you get to D&D and kind of spirits of that sort, there's no answer for them as a normal type, unless you run into a magic weapon, even for an adventure. Until you get a spell or a magic weapon, or you have a cleric that gets up high enough level, there's really no answer to that. But in popular culture, we do have answers for these things because they show up in films and movies and stories and things all the time. And in fact, what this person did with their house is they found some place which was the center of, at least, again, if you believe the stories, that there was the center of power that this apparition had. And until you found it, or until they found it, they could not make headway against it. I mean, they could fight back and forth, they could make it angry, whatever, but they couldn't really push it out of the house. And that all changed when they found this little secret place of power. And there's kind of an interesting spooky story I'll just mention because it's kind of cool and creepy. But apparently they found where there was, and there was some psychic medium things in the church, and all these people getting involved, all these things. But anyway, they discovered there's some kind of little secret area in the house that had been kind of walled up, plastered, no traces. It wasn't something that was, you could say, oh, look, here's the outline of where it is. And apparently it wasn't made to be opened. It wasn't a secret door, or a secret little cabinet or cubby hole. It was just sealed up. And inside there was like a couple of playing cards. There was a dead bird or a skeleton of a bird, and apparently a couple of Legos, which the guy felt certain was from one of his kids, which was one of those, ooh, because, if this thing was all sealed up and there's no such thing as, spirits or ghouls or demons or whatever, then how did the kids' Legos get into this thing that apparently, again, if you believe stories, had been sealed for hundreds of years, or at least 800 years. And this got me thinking that I've watched a lot of those paranormal shows. That's probably why part of my morbid fascinations that get me listening to Unsolved Mysteries podcast. But oftentimes on those shows, whether you believe them or not, they usually have some kind of focus, something that you can find. And when you find that focus, that tends to be, so they say, some kind of connection that's either keeping the spirit here or doing something. It's some kind of and I'm just going to call it an anchor, that there's an anchor for this thing that is in our world that allows it to exist, or allows it to keep it tethered. Now, I don't know in your average D&D world, right? You think about it in kind of the Catholic, say, Christian archetype. Spirits, you're supposed to move on to the great beyond, or to some holding area, depending on what your heaven, hell, right? However you believe about that. But you're supposed to move on. You're supposed to, goodbye, great grandpa, you're gone. In D&D, it doesn't necessarily work that way. It depends on, especially in your game, however that is, your planes, your do they go to Valhalla? Do they go to heaven? Do they go to your Greek-ish type hell, ancient kind of hell thing? So not hell, Hell, but more of that just underground where it's kind of gray, and Orpheus is looking for his wife down there. And okay, yeah, Hades Town, like the musical. In any event, this idea of that, hey, this thing can't stay here. Maybe it takes an inordinate amount of energy for these creatures to continually impact the material plane. They're on the astral plane or the ethereal plane, whatever they are, normally, and maybe they can't even be, they got to be somewhere else, right? But to stick here, it's hard for them to do. The currents, if you think about like an ocean, if the astral or ethereal plane, whatever, it's like some big ocean with currents that are pulling it, maybe pulling it away. If the prime material plane's in the middle, maybe the currents are pulling outwards. And if you're a good person, you go that way. If bad, you go that way. And maybe if you're neutral, you go on the other axis. However it works, pulled away. But this focus, which I'm going to call an anchor, this anchor keeps you here. If you want to do with the silver thread, ethereal plane kind of thing, then maybe if you were to put on your ethereal goggles, I can't even do it. You might see the little silver thread. However you want to do it. But this anchor keeps them here. So if you have some undead, your skeletons, your zombies, whatever, if they're just summoned, hey, they're summoned, stay here and guard this room, then that's all they are. And there's no particular tether. The magic maybe is its own tether, or the room is its, whatever it is, that's the kind of thing. And so you come in, you're a cleric, you turn it, bloop, 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 and or you hit them with a sword hard enough, they collapse. And the magic that was essentially animating them is here. But then this other kind of undead, I'm not sure what to call them. We can think about how they're generated. If one is simply negative energy animated, that's what you're really doing when you're summoning undead. You're taking some bones that are laying around and you're infusing them with some kind of negative energy, giving it a very simple command, because let's face it, negative energy is not that smart. And then you're saying, yeah, go about do this thing until somebody stops you. Great. But there must be another kind, potentially, which creates this anchor. And I think we could think about some things in popular fiction. One of them is just kind of trauma. You're people who are horribly hurt and murdered, the battlefields where people are slain, something really horrible has happened, and that trauma, maybe collectively, or it's so powerful from an individual, creates that anchor maybe at that spot, wherever their remains are. Or you could have it be an item. Let's say on some battlefield, there was some horrible axe, and some guy with an axe killed 100 souls. Yeah, 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 yeah. And maybe they died, maybe they dropped the axe, wherever. And wherever that axe ended up on the battlefield became this anchor for these spirits that then haunt the battlefield. And so you can, so why I'm going through this is because my opinion here is, one, if you don't have a cleric or you don't have magic weapons, you can think about, well, it's not just a lost cause, run away. I mean, we might need to run away, we're actually in combat, but if we've been tasked with, you got to clear this battlefield because we want to put in a golf course, okay, boss, but we don't have a cleric, we don't have magic weapons, we're first level, you have options. There are things you can do. You can, all right, well, we got to find out what is causing this, and maybe you can bring in somebody with a dowsing rod. However, you could bring in someone from the local temple or church who maybe knows something. Oh, the legend of the 100 soul axe. Okay, let's find it. Whatever, you can do something, and once you find it, you can do something with it, and so you can deal with an undead in a way that isn't just fighting it. And then it's also a way you can deal with it when you can't fight it. Hey, we can't take out this mummy lord, but if we can find out what's keeping this mummy lord here, then we can solve it. It gives us an angle. And I think that angle is often more interesting than just the fighting it. Finding out why the mummy lord is here, and then figuring out, can we do the thing? Can we find the person? Can we do whatever? That to me is more fun. So that's one kind of anchor. That's this kind of trauma anchor could be one. Another one could be the unfinished business. If you look at it, hey, whoa, it's got unfinished business. Oh, what did it? Forgot to deposit a couple checks before I went. What, did it forget to turn off the oven? Whatever it is, that can also be that kind of anchor. Or the anchor could be kind of two things, and when you bring them together, it breaks the anchor, right? It's like it's you can think about it, maybe it's a little bit of a web with these little fingerlings coming down of astral and touching these three things, and until you link them all together, or when you link them all together, they'll disperse. With not, it's there. That could be a different kind of anchor. So you have sort of, okay, we have just creation, we have trauma, we have unfinished business. I think there's also the one which leads into kind of when you get to liches and those kind of things, the ritual where the person themselves, if we want to look at horcruxes kind of thing, hey, they're creating their own anchors because they're doing some weird ceremony where they're locking their spirit in their flesh, and they're creating these anchors, maybe one, maybe multiple, and until if those anchors are still around, then there's flesh and their spirit cannot be separated, and thus they cannot be killed. That's kind of immortality. Certainly one type of immortality is like, no, we're just going to force it. We're not letting the spirit leave the body. We're going to get all ashy and wrinkly and whatever, but we're still here. We're still mobile until you find those 7 pieces that you got to find. But then remember, what the idea here is, okay, well, we have a mechanical thing, so that we can say to the cleric, hey, you can, if you're powerful enough, or let's say whatever, like, yeah, this thing, you can turn it and it has a certain effect, but that's not permanent. You have dispersed it, but the anchor's still there. And until the anchor is taken care of, whatever that thing might be, then it's going to come back later. Now, you might not care. We just need to get across the battlefield to get to the other side to get on with our mission. And we've got spirits because we happen to come here on a full moon, and that's when the spirits all come out. Oh gosh, turn by the power of, the power of my whatever compels you, power of my deity compels you, and they run off, but they're going to come back, and you might go, that's fine, because that's not, we're not doing that. We turn the graveyard into a golf course, so we're off doing something else. That's fine. But if they do want to take care of it, if that is the task at hand, then we could say, yeah, if you turn it, maybe they're down for a small amount of time, but they're certainly not all out. And really turning anyway, they're just kind of running off into a corner. They're not gone. But even if you destroy them, it's only temporary. It might be great for you. Hey, they're down for a week. And during that week, then you can find something about it. You can even think about, what is the effects? If we turn destroy into something else, what might destroy mean? Maybe if they're destroyed, or whatever word we turn that into, then maybe you could deal with them another way. And certainly if you're on this idea, if you've expressed this to your players, this is a thing you can do, and this is a thing actually you must do at times, then this gives them a chance in peace to, okay, we've destroyed or banished for now the spirit. He's not going to come back for 6 days, so let's ransack his house and figure out what the heck this anchor could be and try to get that sorted before the spirit comes back. Because I know when he comes back, he's going to be ticked off. He's going to be peeved greatly. So think about, if you're playing around with undead, what is undead like? How can we take undead from being just a thing? And you could keep those. Like I said, you could still have your these skeletons. They were just generated, summoned, whatever. They're just here. They don't have names. They don't have stories. And maybe the skeleton's in the corner shedding a little tear because he does have a story. We just have ignored him. That's you, skeleton. I apologize. But then you can have these other ones, and it becomes more than just hack them and slash them. It creates a different kind of problem, and a problem that rewards different sorts of skills and tasks. It's not just about, well, I got my magic hammer, so I'm just going to go smashing to bits. Okay, that's great. That'll work for a while. It'll take them down, but if you're interested in truly solving the problem and not a symptom of the problem, then that's not going to do it. Same thing for your cleric. Oh, I'll turn him. All right, I'll destroy. Okay, great. He's gone. But again, symptom, not the problem. And what I like about it is something that I find that I've been interested lately in seeing how all these fantastic elements cycle back to human problems. Last week I looked at an adventure. I'll try to link to it. Whatever called was it the House of 99, the Orb of 99, the House of 99 Souls. Forgive me. I think it was called the House of 99 Souls. If I've forgotten, I will correct it somewhere. In any case, that adventure has some undead elements, has to deal with life and death. And one of the things I liked about it a lot was it has this human element of it. It's a very human story, human themes that then are given a fantastic elements. So I like the idea that, hey, this evil, horrible thing is happening, but it comes back to a very human story, whether it's trauma, whether it's some kind of unfinished business. And you could think about all the other reasons that we've read about in books and movies and whatever, how you might get undead. They can't leave somebody behind. They failed and they're cursed and something like that. And these are all really human stories that not only I think just lend a whole other layer to them, but then look, you can fight them if you want. And I wouldn't be averse to something if you say, well, if they do some kind of ritual, they can destroy them regardless. That's fine. But to me, the more fun part is let's delve into those human stories and let's look at those. And then as a GM, you get to play with some themes that I think are more resonant, at least they are to me at this time, than just let's hack and slash, pull out our magic weapons and get your holy symbol ready, father, mother, whomever, right, and going into work. I had this on my mind. I'm sharing it here. I might do something on the other channel when I formalize things more, but it was here, it was on my mind. I thought I would share. Let me know what you think. That's all I got. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.